Jar Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
Excellent jam, Wave.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta do de. Luta munulo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis. Hello?
Busel mu fine.
What?
Busel mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave acts in Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills, and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. At Wave, Busel mu fine. Wave, your money is yours.
Thanks for tuning into Coffee Time with Peter Gomez. Today, Thursday, the 11th of September, and it's West Coast Radio, where we bring you the voices shaping our nation's future. And today we are honored to host a distinguished guest whose role sits at the very heart of government operations. Joining me is Alhaji Modke Sise, Chief of Staff and Minister responsible for the presidency. As one of the most influential figures in the executive branch, Mod oversees the coordination of presidential initiatives, interministerial affairs, and strategic national priorities. From policy implementation to crisis response, his office is where decisions meet action. Now, Cabinet normally meets on Thursdays, so he's made the extra effort of starting early so that he could leave by 9 a.m. to be on time for today's meeting. Alhaji Mod, welcome back to Coffee Time. It's not your first time here, actually. You've been here before.
Good morning, Peter. Good morning. Or should I say Uncle Peter?
Yeah. Because your boss calls me Uncle.
Uncle. You're so easy, then I should call you Uncle.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
What does your role as Chief of Staff and Minister in the Presidency entail, on a day-to-day basis?
Okay. On a day-to-day basis, the role of the Chief of Staff is basically to execute executive directives or instructions. But at the same time, he is the technical head of the presidential team. And when we say the presidential team, it's a broad range of professionals, ranging from the protocol division, the media team, the security, among a host of other personnel in the office, including, of course, admin and the technical team. But we also coordinate government institutions, ministries and departments, so that at least we have harmony across government. But at the same time, we also provide policy advice, given the fact that policies formulated in those sectors and in those ministries have to come for presidential endorsement, and then later, in some instances, also adopted by cabinet. But more importantly, also assist the president in his day-to-day function. He's a boss, and we provide support.
Fantastic. First, it was just Chief of Staff, and you were doing all this. And later, we had, a ministerial portfolio added to it. Why was that necessary?
No, and interestingly, I have had so many individuals ask about the same question, and clearly demonstrate that there is misunderstanding.
This is an opportunity to educate all of us.
Yes, the Chief of Staff remained the Chief of Staff. What had happened was, initially, the thinking was that you would be coordinating at the technical level. But over time, we realized that we also need to coordinate ministers or ministers' work on behalf of the president. And therefore, to do that, you needed to have the same status and authority. And therefore, what simply changed is that we have elevated the Chief of Staff, status to a ministerial rank, therefore empowering the Chief of Staff to be able to work with the colleague ministers and also sit in cabinet. I was sitting in cabinet,
okay.
but basically to assist the president. But now as a minister, now you have a voice and you can speak in cabinet. But again, people say Minister of Presidential Affairs or Minister. The presidency is headed by a president. The presidency is not a ministerial portfolio.
So what is the correct nomenclature?
The correct nomenclature is just Chief of Staff and Minister.
Just Chief of Staff and Minister?
Yeah.
No need for in the presidency or presidential affairs?
No.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So before you were declared a minister, was it difficult to do the coordination job that you're continuing to do now, you know, where it concerns other ministers? Did they see you a step below them?
Of course, that was the case. That was the situation and needed to be regularized because it impacted and the perceptions and also collaboration was significantly different. Ministers are ministers, and therefore to work with them and also convey or transmit decisions needed to have equal authority to be able to do that effectively. So, and by the way, we also needed to benchmark because everywhere else, the chief of staff, whether it's in Nigeria or in Ghana, in the US, actually is a ministerial rank portfolio.
And how do you
position? Sorry.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask, how do you balance the duties of presidential work with national priorities?
The presidential work entails broadly national priorities. We think every day and we work every day on national priorities. And such priorities actually are the vision of the president. The vision of the president is what is translated into government programs. And therefore, every day we will have received implementation update from the sectors or proposals which seeks to either enhance existing programs or modify existing programs as things evolve and emerging issues also comes up. So by and large, the role of the Chief of Staff work with institutions, but also carry out the presidential directive as a feedback to sectors that have approached the presidency with regard to specific matters that needed the attention of the president. But of course, at cabinet, we also discuss matters that are of priorities and are of also concerns and emerging issues in the country, by and large.
How is the presidency working to improve transparency and accountability in government? I'm asking this question because after this, I'll ask about, you know, the presidency's reported response to a report from the National Assembly.
Yeah, I mean, with respect to the new administration, the new administration came at the heel of a very difficult time, and that is the dictatorship regime. And therefore, reforms were needed in so many areas. Key among them is institutional reform, but also legislative reform as well as institutional reform. Now, those reform resulted to the legislative initiative that the administration have embarked upon, including the constitutional program.
Constitutional building process.
The constitutional building process, but also the national security reform programs that has also been embarked upon. But various legislative changes were also introduced. Because you have to remember that for 22 years, these institutions were very much butchered and seriously impacted to an extent that actually you needed to rebuild from foundation. So people may be impatient, but so much work has been done, and that must be also recognized. Those are the initiatives that inform a lot of things that have been done with respects to bringing about transparency and accountability, because the most important thing is to get the institution working again and bring about accountability. If the institutions are not empowered, they will not be able to have checks and balances to be able to detect in time and also identify where problems are so that corrective measures can be taken. And specifically, you remember when the setting up of the Janneh Commission, including even the TRRC, now the ongoing local government commissions. Even after the Janneh Commission, we now have to have another panel of investigation led by the Parliament. But of course, so many audit reports. You remember, Peter, we used to have a backlog of audits, maybe up to 7 or even 8 years backlog of audit. But now we only barely have. As we speak now, there are ongoing audits, only 2024 accounts. 2023 is being finalized. So that is how well the audit backlog have been cleared. So with those financial reporting as well as auditing, then there is this passive incidences of cases of corruption. But we have to understand that it's not that there is necessarily an increment, but rather the frequency and detection level have significantly increased. That has what has led to this. So it's rather unfortunate. Instead of encouraging and tapping government at the back for good work being done to bring about transparency and accountability in our financial governance, the same result is now being used against government. That brings about the corruption perspective. But recently we have also provided a detailed update regarding government initiative and government specific cases that has been dealt with, that has brought about people being taken to court for prosecution or their case already determined by the various oversight institutions such as the Public Service Commission and the various SOE boards. A very detailed report and also updating on implementation status of the various Commission of Inquiry report that has also been undertaken by this administration and shared with the general public.
So you're saying that instead of getting a tap on the back, what you're getting is actually a slap on the back.
Exactly.
Or maybe in the face. So the question about transparency and accountability leads me now to ask about, the executives or government's position on the parliamentary inquiry into the so-called Russian oil scandal. Because the impression you get is Parliament has done a fantastic job and the executive powerhouse is simply saying, yeah, it's their findings are not strong enough for us to make any move.
No, I mean, people have to understand that the parliamentary inquiry was basically a snapshot screening of what had happened. Remember, the whole issue, or saga as it's called, was flagged by the banking system. And by the way, let me also say thanks to the Janneh Commission findings, where thereafter the regulation relating to public financial management were strengthened, and the anti-money laundering regulations were also sharpened, that suspicious transactions were reported by our banking system to then FIU. Then
the Financial Intelligence Unit.
The Financial Intelligence Unit of the Central Bank. And then FIU thereafter conducted a quick investigation and submitted a report both to the Central Bank as well as the police. So I am saying again, you can see a classical case where government on its own actually come up with this initiative and actually volunteer to disclose some of this information. Now, of course, we have to also understand that there was a problem at the Gambia Petroleum Depot to an extent that most international traders abandoned our depot. There was briefly shortage of fuel in this country, and then the appearance of Apogee, which is a ship, and we were told certified and registered in Dubai. So at the time, we wouldn't have known that these are maybe Russian imported fuel, because the documentation all reveals somewhere else. But all the same, they were in the Gambia, and at the time actually we are doing what many would not do. Most traders, they will come and then dump at the depot and sell through OMCs and then take forex and transfer back. This particular company came and established companies in the Gambia and was also accepting dollars. So with all fairness, it appears to be a beneficial and very good deal, which has actually helped the country at the time. And then when this suspicious transaction was made by the bank, it was thought of as a money laundering. And then the report submitted to the central bank and the police, they reacted very quickly by looking at what had actually happened. The initial conclusion by both the police and the central bank was that, look, the fundamental question that was raised regarding money laundering concluded that actually the source of the proceeds was from oil. So the source was established, and therefore no initial action was taken. But central bank later do some further investigation and did conclude that some financial regulation breaches were made by some banks, and they were fined.
Two banks.
Two banks. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the police also haven't established the source of the fuel. Still, they needed to do more detailed work, and that is why some of the recommendations from the panel was that given the regulatory breaches and police inaction or the suspicious manner in which the matter was handled, then further investigation is required. So let me simply say that the parliamentary inquiry in most of the instances documented some breaches and also flagged instances where government needed to do further investigation and probe. So, but did concluded that the key allegation of bribery, corruption were not actually established. And that was why I was shocked when I hear in some post, especially by my brother, Madi Jobate, indicating that cabinet have said this or cabinet have concluded it. No. Cabinet or government did not conclude. It was the parliamentary inquiry panel that concluded that no established cases of corruption and bribery were found, but did make recommendations regarding specific regulatory breaches and some abnormal banking transaction, and also identified public officials at the level of Gambia Petroleum, at the level of the police and central bank, and as well as phone call exchanges between the minister and IGP that needed to be further looked at to establish whether anything went wrong.
Oh, they only needed to be further looked at?
They needed to be further looked at. And then report back to them. And it is up to cabinet, it's up to parliament, therefore, to make a resolution, which is, by the way, it's not also binding to government. But when they are made, government take them very seriously and definitely is bound to do the right course of action.
Okay. Let's talk about the United Nations General Assembly, because very soon you people will be heading out to New York. The last time the foreign minister was here, the issue of, the delegation, even the information minister came up. The delegation size revolves around the president from what you hear. When the president travels, of course, he goes out with a large team, security, technicians, what have you. As far as as far as 2025 is concerned, how large is the delegation likely to be? And if you can put a number to it.
Okay, Peter, I think a number doesn't matter, and I'll tell you why. I had a politician, a smart individual that I respect.
Oh, you can name him. We all know who he is.
And no, Bimon, actually the large presidential entourage when he moves, whether locally or even overseas.
In excess of 80, more than 80.
No, I'm not. I'll come to the UN General Assembly because somebody mentioned about a long convoy of presidentially when he moves. And I said, does he understand the presidency or the president and individual around the president? When the president moves, he moves with his chief of staff. He moves with his security. And minimum we have to move with is a security convoy. And where are we going to put these personnel? In donkey carts? We have to put them in vehicle trucks and pickups, or even in some instances also 4x4s. But he also moved with his technical team. He moved with ministers. He moved with the media team. So why wouldn't that
the medical team
attract large entourage or large envoy? And that is locally. Then let's talk about overseas. The UN General Assembly is a convergence of close to 25 United Nations body or organs, with almost nearly also 30 or 40 committees. And these are organs and committees that receive reports, programs, budget, and that need to be reviewed by national delegates. And when I say national delegate, by the way, it's the government, the civil society organization, the media, pressure groups, the women groups, everybody that has interest and stake in those committees and organization work. So most of the time you require national presence where major decisions are made in those committees. And the committee works precede the General Assembly statement by 1 week or 2 weeks. The General Assembly, the summit concludes by the General Assembly statement, which is likely about 3 days, but by which time the committee work must have been completed. So usually the government delegation, when we talk about national delegation, would be the biggest, but it's normal because we already have 2 missions in the US that will be participating, and that is our DC embassy as well as the New York mission. That alone, drawing team from those 2 missions alone might be up to 10. Now the government delegations, like I told you, how many UN bodies are affiliated with our ministries, department, and agencies? And when there are major issues, you have to constitute your delegation by drawing up individuals from those relevant ministries to participate. But not only that, we also facilitate participation from civil society, facilitation from every other group that might have been invited or are relevant to participate in UN groups. So you will be surprised to know that most of the time, the government delegation are squeezed in such a way that not even half that are required to go actually did make it to New York. So if we were to participate in all those forums and in all those committee works, of course, the number about 80 that they will be talking about would be right. But we have from the government part, we have likely never have taken there not more than 25 or even 30 people.
Oh, really?
So the statements that have been branded, or the numbers that have been branded, are largely false. But the national delegation, for which we are not using public funds to pay for them, they are participating on their own, or sponsored by their sponsors from the UN bodies. Those we have a responsibility to facilitate, but we don't pay for those people. But besides, especially if the president goes, remember when the president goes, the minimum he can go with would be a number of maybe 10 or 12 minimum. And then he also had to go with a security advance team to take care of also security issues on the ground. So if the presidency is going, the number look bigger. But that is because the president is going. But, for example, I am happy to report to you that I will not be going to New York this year.
Why?
Because the president is not going. We have delegated the vice president this time around to go. All of those considerations are largely because of resource constraint and consideration that has to be also made, but not to diminish the significance and importance of the event. It should be attended and at the highest level and participated in all committees where possible, because that is where decisions are made. That is because of attending UN General Assembly meetings. That's why we have so many important development programs, such as NAFA, implemented by NANA, such as some of the projects that you see that have been implemented in the various ministries. That's how they come about. Most UN initiatives and programs are formulated and decided in the corridors of the United Nations General Assembly committee works. So it's very, very significant. You stay out, you missed out. Who wouldn't want to benefit for the interest of the public in such important gathering? But more importantly also is the presidential statement. You attend and then you make pronouncements and you make statements to discuss about national views, global views, and also make advocacy in the interest of Africa, but in the interest of your country. So it's a very, very important gathering that must be attended. So unfortunately for individuals that want to make this an issue to score cheap political points, I dare say that it's because they don't understand how the UN General Assembly work or have never participated in any, although they might have been staying in New York and even assisted national delegates, but themselves have never attended UN General Assembly meetings.
Because are they difficult to attend? It's not everybody who can attend a UN
It's
General
not everybody that can attend a UN General Assembly.
You can even be part of the delegation, but not be admitted to the General Assembly itself.
No. I mean, very few are even admitted to the General Assembly, the 3 days of General Assembly. But most of those delegations were there to do other works, committee works, that would have finished 3 days before the General Assembly session starts. I mean, staff of the United Nations and maybe Gambian staff. By the way, during the session of the UN General Assembly, most UN agencies will go on recess. So they don't even have access to the area. And only those that have registered in various forums and committee rooms that would have access to those rooms. So you can claim to be a UN General Assembly, UN United Nations staff or staffer, and not even attend UN General Assembly meeting.